A poor mechanic stopped for her. What he did next changed everything. The streets of Chicago buzzed with their usual evening chaos. Horns honked impatiently, tires screeched on wet asphalt, and the amber glow of streetlights reflected off the glass of towering skyscrapers. Amidst this organized chaos, Marcus drove his rusty old pickup truck, the engine groaning under the weight of years and neglect. At 32, Marcus had become accustomed to the rhythm of struggle. Running his small auto repair shop in the heart of the city wasn't easy. Bills piled up faster than he could pay them. His toolbox was a patchwork of worn-out wrenches and oil-stained gloves, and his apartment, though cozy, always seemed a little colder than he liked. Still, Marcus was determined. Life had dealt him more than his fair share of challenges, but he had a stubborn streak that refused to give up. That evening, after 12 grueling hours of repairing engines and coaxing stubborn cars back to life, Marcus felt the exhaustion settle deep into his bones. His shoulders ached, his hands were covered in grime, and the faint scent of motor oil clung to him like a second skin. Yet as he steered his truck down the crowded streets, something caught his eye, a figure struggling on the far side of the road. At first, he thought it might be another pedestrian navigating the uneven sidewalk, but as he drew closer, he noticed the unmistakable outline of a wheelchair. A young woman, barely 24, was attempting to cross the busy intersection alone. Her wheelchair had one of its tires stuck in the narrow spaces between the metal grate embedded in the asphalt. Cars honked impatiently, their drivers leaning on their horns, frustrated by the delay. Marcus's instincts kicked in. He slammed on the brakes, the tires squealing as the truck skidded slightly, narrowly avoiding the car in front. His heart raced, not from fear, but from urgency. He jumped out of the vehicle, his boots thudding on the wet pavement, and sprinted toward the woman. "Hey, do you need some help?" Marcus called out, his voice firm yet kind, carrying over the noise of traffic. The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes were a deep hazel, warm but wary, framed by strands of chestnut hair escaping from her loosely tied ponytail. She was wearing a light blue jacket, slightly oversized, with a soft scarf around her neck that fluttered in the chilly evening breeze. Despite her struggle, there was a grace in her movements, a quiet determination that caught Marcus off guard. I think my wheelchair tire got stuck," she replied softly, her voice tinged with worry and embarrassment. Marcus knelt down beside her, inspecting the wheel. Sure enough, one of the tires had wedged firmly into the metal grate, bent awkwardly. Any sudden movement could tip the wheelchair, and the woman's attempts to free it were making the situation worse. Most people, Marcus knew, would have glanced, muttered a half-hearted apology, and driven off. But not him. He rolled up his sleeves and examined the wheel closely. "All right, we're going to get you out of this," he said reassuringly, a small smile breaking through his tired expression. The woman hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you. I don't want to hold up traffic." "Don't worry about that. Your safety comes first," Marcus replied. Time seemed to slow as he worked. He adjusted the tire, carefully maneuvering it free from the grate, while simultaneously keeping the wheelchair stable. Passers-by glanced at the scene, some curious, some impatient, but Marcus ignored them all. He was focused entirely on the task at hand. Finally, after several tense minutes that felt like an eternity, the wheel popped free. Marcus let out a relieved breath and stepped back. "There we go," he said. The woman looked down at the fixed wheel, then up at him. Her lips curled into a grateful smile, and a spark of relief shone in her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." Marcus shrugged, brushing the dirt from his hands. "No problem. Just glad you're safe." For a brief moment, they just looked at each other, the noise of the city fading into the background. Marcus noticed the faint scars along her hands and wrists, subtle signs of her daily challenges. evidence of a life that demanded resilience. Emily, as he soon learned her name was, carried herself with dignity despite the obstacles she faced. She was young, vibrant, and full of an unspoken courage that Marcus found quietly inspiring. "Do you live around here?" Marcus asked, trying to make conversation as he helped her push the wheelchair to a safer spot on the sidewalk. "Yes, a few blocks away," Emily replied, her voice soft but steady. "I usually manage on my own, but today, well, I guess I wasn't prepared." Marcus smiled faintly. "Sometimes even the strongest people need a little help. Don't feel bad about it." There was a pause, a rare silence in the bustling street. Marcus noticed how carefully she maneuvered the wheelchair now, moving with a combination of precision and caution. "You seem like you handle things pretty well," he added. Emily's smile grew, a hint of pride flickering in her eyes. "I do what I can. Life doesn't give you many breaks, so you make the most of what you have." Marcus felt a strange warmth spread through him. Her words, so simple yet so honest, resonated deeply. He had spent his life working with his hands, fixing cars and engines, but here was someone fixing her own path through a world that wasn't always kind. "Hey, if you ever need help again, even if it's just someone to talk to, don't hesitate," Marcus said, surprising himself with the offer. Emily looked at him, her hazel eyes meeting his. There was a pause, a subtle acknowledgement of trust forming in that brief encounter. I appreciate that. Thank you, really." Before Marcus could reply, the traffic around them began to move again. He stepped back, giving Emily space, and watched as she slowly wheeled herself along the sidewalk, navigating the city streets with careful determination. For a moment, he felt a pang of longing, an unexplainable connection to someone he had just met. As he climbed back into his truck, Marcus thought about how small gestures could have profound impacts. A simple decision to stop, to help someone in need, could change more than one life. He hadn't realized it yet, but this encounter with Emily would mark the beginning of something extraordinary, something that would challenge his understanding of compassion, courage, and the power of human connection. Driving home, Marcus glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Emily following behind. Of course she wasn't. She had her own life to navigate, her own battles to fight. Yet for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Amid the struggle, the long hours, and the endless challenges, there was a moment, a single, fleeting moment that reminded him of the goodness still left in the world. And it had come in the form of a young woman in a wheelchair, whose courage was as undeniable as the Chicago skyline itself. Marcus parked outside his small apartment, the engine ticking softly as it cooled. He stepped out, rubbing the grease from his hands, and couldn't help but smile to himself. Life had a funny way of surprising you when you least expected it, and for Marcus, this surprise had wheels and hazel eyes. Little did he know, this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. A single act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that would change both